Record number of complaints, including a woman who was demoted when she returned from maternity leave, and another mum sacked for caring for her sick kids.
So are mums unfairly targeted? Let's put it to our jury. Joining us is commentators Suzanne Mostyn and Paul Murray from Triple M. Good morning to you both.
G'day.
Susan, why are employers still giving women a hard time after all this time?
You know, I really believe, Kylie, that it's a case of the psychology. We may not want to admit it, but I think that that some employers, and generally in the community at large, have this psychological thing about, oh, she's going to be having a baby, she's going to want time off, she's going to have those mother issues, without thinking about what mothers actually contribute to the overall workplace. It's very easy to take that line of thought, but really it's very unfair, it's misogynist in the extreme, and quite frankly I think we need to get past that thing of, oh well, a bloke's going to be there 9 to 5, a bloke's going to be not worrying about his kids. It's about the family, and certainly someone once said, maybe it was a woman, that if men were the ones who gave birth we wouldn't have this issue. I think that's kind of right.
Now, Paul, how can we make it easier for women to balance work and then motherhood?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, with this problem, we can go one step back too, to that whole maternity leave thing, that in Australia we don't have paid maternity leave, and we're being beaten by countries like New Zealand. So there is a way to change this. It's very simple. All pregnant women, young mums should be wearing footy jumpers, because then, if they're all wearing wallaby jumpers, the Prime Minister's going to go, we can't be beaten by New Zealand. So sure, you take a little hit, but it means the Prime Minister will finally act. And if that doesn't sway him, show that video of the kid dancing and saying, look what can happen when you take a year off work.
I was wondering where you were going with those footy jumpers. Suzanne?
How about we dip into that future fund that we're saving billions of dollars for and make it a right now fund and offer business incentives like tax breaks to put work-based childcare centres in? And how about making things in the noughties, which we are now? We're no longer the 90s, we're the noughties. We need to think more laterally about more flexible work practices. But also, I've found, Kylie, after being a journalist for 17 years, that I've come up against this in the sense that after I had my second son, I wanted to return to journalism 3 days a week. So I put my youngest into 3-day childcare, and the money that I earned working 3 days a week as a journalist just covered the fees for childcare. So I was doing it more for the pleasure of working, the intellectual stimulation, even though I was a senior journalist. So I think we've got to have something that reflects the way that we pull our weight as working mothers, and also sort of evolve a bit more and be more like Sweden and New Zealand and other countries that have taken this on board very seriously.
It's a good point, Mac. I'm whinging to Larry all the time about how much I'm forking out for childcare. I do have a big whinge.
And how you should be getting paid more. Whinging a lot about that lately.
How you want to wear footy
Just lately,
jumpers.
like just in the last week or so.
In other news, Californian scientists have discovered new technology to allow fast-tracked breast surgery. Women could be getting a lunch break boob job as early as next year. The procedure takes just over an hour and involves injecting fat from a patient's buttocks or stomach into the breast tissue. Now, Suzanne, lunchtime surgery, does that take your fancy?
God, I'm normally cutting up the kids' lunches. You know, the 4-year-old, I've got to make his lunch before I have the boob job. But hey, wouldn't it be kind of nice, wouldn't it? It's the only time that you'd really want this supercharged fat. Apparently that's what it's called, supercharged fat. Doesn't that sound lovely, ladies? But we can have it taken out of our bottoms and put into our breasts. The only part of our bodies that we'd want to acknowledge that we'd have fat, we spend years trying to eliminate the hail damage, don't we?
But the hour-long boob job, though, it's getting a bit of a talk-up. Blokes have had it for years. You just get some man boobs at lunch. Always able to get it by simply popping down, having a few burgers. It's very simple. You don't even need to involve a doctor. Just go get just an awesome cheeseburger, chomp away, upper cup size in 2 years. I am proof, lady.
Is plastic surgery, Paul, just becoming too easy now? You look at this lunchtime thing, Suzanne, clearly you'll be able to get the kids' lunch orders on that day you want to do this.
Well, that's it. It's not easy enough. I think it should be drive-through. It should be more accessible. Let's use the future fund for that. Let's just build so you can get your chips, you can get your petrol, and if you would like a new pair, fair enough.
So you get one.
And I'll have boobs with that, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you like those super-sized?
I'll have the Pamela Anderson,
Yes.
or I'll have the Kylie Minogue, or what size would you go? Would you go for the little, the big?
Yeah, you know, your husband would still call it a Happy Meal. Still.
Because it comes with all those toys.
Oh, we could just go on and on and on, couldn't we?
Finally today, we're asking which famous person would you like to meet and why, Suzanne? Top of your list, please.
Oh, Kylie, you trumped me. I was already going to say, it's already been said, but George Clooney, talk about your eye candy. And I said once that for a dinner party, I'd have him as my centrepiece so that I could just sit there and look if the other guests got really boring. But look, I think I'd probably have Oprah. If I couldn't have George, Kylie, you've got George, I'd have Oprah, because apparently she had this fabulous dinner party where Hugh Jackman was sitting next to her and all these other stars were quaffing their wine and chatting. Hugh Jackman started to really entertain Oprah, and she was so taken with this anecdote he was telling that she actually said, "Excuse me, ting, 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 everybody's got to listen. You have to listen to our conversation. You need to hear this. Hugh's got a wonderful story." So how about that? You controlling what everybody does and listens to.
Yeah, you know, Suzanne, just before we move on to Paul, I just couldn't help but notice your Oprah sounds very much like Paris Hilton.
Oh, it's a bit down south, isn't it? It's a bit Georgia.
What do you think, mate? Famous person.
Look, everyone's going for the eye candy, but you've got to go for the intellectual stimulation.
I'm with you.
So I mean, that's why, you know, if I had the chance to meet Rob Ruff, former Family Feud host, but more so a current news personality on the Sunshine Coast, you could discuss many things with him.
Yes.
They're fascinating. I don't know what, but I presume... Fascinating thing. He's a big footy fan. Yeah. I know that. He can sit around and apparently absolutely loves playing the Nintendo Wii topless. So you'd be able to stand there and he's just wacking away, playing a bit of TV tennis with Rob Ruff.
Does he have man boobs, though?
I think it's time for us to say goodbye to you. Hello to Rob if you're watching there on Sunshine.
Go easy on the game show hosts.
No, I
we have a soft spot.
Hey.
It's very sensitive, mate, and don't ever touch me again.
All right.
Yeah, that's your
okay.
line.
Got the memo last week, dude. Cool.
Thanks, mate. Good to see you. All right, Suzanne, thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys. See you again.
Good to see you. Hey, ahead on the show, when is it okay to stay friends with an ex? Is it ever? And we'll get some tips for surviving a high school